Hello there, everyone, and a very happy Thursday to you today. My name is Sarah, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here with you today and with the lovely creative folks here in the Arden community. So, thank you so much for joining us today for another live. And if you are popping in, welcome. As you're popping in, we would love to hear a little comment from you or see a little comment from you. Let us know where you're watching from. Give us a wave so that we know that it's not just Fiona and myself sitting here scrapbooking together. And we would love to welcome you in. So, thank you again so much for joining us. We're going to be playing with some heritage scrapbooking ideas today. So if you were joining us last month, I almost said last week, but it was last month, we did this heritage themed page. And this was in combination with Arden's Remembering series and also the Remembering Our Hero campaign. If you missed last month's live, you can watch it again. So that's the wonderful thing about being able to check out videos online. You can always watch them whenever it suits your time. But if you are live with us here, welcome and thanks for joining us. So last month, it was a bit more of a masculine theme, I suppose you would say, a military style theme. Again, as we're talking about remembering our heroes and looking ahead to next week, which is November 11th, is the Remembrance Day in the UK. It is also Veterans Day in the US. So if you're memorializing a family member, this is a really great time to do it. This week, though, we're going to go for a different style of heritage theme. So this one is focused on childhood photos, specifically baby photos. And last month, I was sharing a photo and some stories about my dad. So this time you're going to meet my mom. Here she is as a really cute little baby. And we'll talk about photos, we'll talk about journaling, and I will also talk about just the basic layout of this page, which I think works nicely for a heritage page, can also, I'm trying to avoid getting that glare on the photo, can also work, I think, nicely for lots of other themes. I think just the layout of this could work beautifully for other themes. Also, the papers would work beautifully for other themes too. And we'll have a look at those too. Hi, Michaela. She's from York, North Yorkshire. Welcome. And Susan from the other side of the world, from Wisconsin. And Susan, I was born in Wisconsin, Sparta, Wisconsin specifically. It's a very, very tiny town. It's where my dad was stationed in the military. And Fiona is, as I mentioned, behind the scenes for us from Arden, and she's going to be popping in some information as I'm talking and also will help me catch any comments that I can't read or I don't catch while I'm demonstrating the page. So thank you, Fiona, for being here. All right, so what I thought we could do is talk first a little bit about some of the heritage tips and techniques that I have to share, and then also we'll go into a demo of the page. So what I'm going to do is flip down my camera and you can see my work surface. There we go. Okay, good. So you can see the album page here, and you can also see, here's my matted photo. And I'm going to talk a little bit about photos in general, but I'd also like to share with you just a little more information about the page in general. So I've got one large photograph here, and this is the only photo that I have sort of this time or of this era. As I mentioned, it's my mom as an adorable baby and her big brother, my uncle. And my uncle passed away not too long ago. My mother is 90 years old. You would never guess it in a million years. She's probably outside deadheading the roadies right now as we speak. She's a very active person, always has been. So was her brother. And I'll tell you a little bit more about them as we get into the page. But with this older style of photo, I didn't have a whole lot of additional information. This is tricky with heritage photos when you are not a person in the photo or you weren't there, you don't really have a lot of additional info to add. So I've added some creative journaling around here. I'm using air quotes, creative journaling in here, and just some journaling tips, and we'll talk a bit more about that. I've also got lots of pattern paper combinations here. I've got some cardstock and I have some really beautiful embellishments, including some rub-ons here. And rub-ons, if you were like me as a kid who loved to do rub-ons, well, they've come a long way. Now they're a lot more sophisticated and a lot more reliable too. So we'll talk about layering rub-ons and also using them onto textured cardstock. So let's talk first about our paper here. I'm going to move this aside just for a second. This is the pattern paper pad that I'm using today. And this is, of course, from Arden. It's the Remembering collection. And these are 12 by 12 pattern papers. Absolutely beautiful. You can see the palette in here. And what I love about this is that you've got not only sort of image style pattern papers like with the butterflies and the planes and the locks and keys, but you also have a lot of really nice coordinating pattern papers that are maybe a subtler all over pattern or kind of some faux texture like with this one here, but they're all created in groupings so that you can mix and match them really easily. And I also like to, you'll notice my photo here and the one from my dad, this is printed as a sepia tone. You can also, of course, print your photos in black. Oh, okay. I think we're there. Can you guys hear me again? If you can, just give me a bit of a wave. I was suddenly moved to what's called backstage, which I didn't move anywhere. So I'm not sure if we had some gremlins in there. Hopefully we're back together and I'm on the right stage. So if somebody can give me a little heads up, that would be great. I'm hoping. Okay, hang on. I'm waiting for the okay. And I think we are good. So I'm going to keep talking either to, okay, there we go. Susan, thank you. Thank you for telling me. I was about to say I'm going to keep talking either to myself or to you, but I would prefer that it was to you. All righty. Back where I was talking about the papers here, where we've got some nice shades of warm tones like the browns that you see in here, which are perfect for the sepia toned photos. Also, you've got some cooler tones that work really nicely with a black and white. So you've got lots of options here, which I definitely appreciate. And honestly, these papers are just absolutely gorgeous. So here you can see some of the larger images, but then you've also got these beautiful all over pattern designs, which work nicely as a background. And of course, you can do some mixing and matching. So what I'm going to do here is start with my bottom layer. And what I figured we could do with the page is we can start at the bottom and kind of work our way up here. So you can see my background paper. I love this design. I love the colors. I love that you've got the poppies down here. Flowers work beautifully for just about any theme. And of course, you've got some nice shading and things in here too. I could simply take my photo, which has been double matted, and place it on here and add some journaling, and we could be good to go. but I wanted to add in some other pattern papers. And this is really where I have to tell you, this is the hardest part about working with pattern papers is picking the one that you want, narrowing things down. And so as I was playing with my photo and deciding which sheet I wanted to use, I thought, oh, this would be really pretty. This is a great background design. There's also something with a more prominent corner treatment on here. That could work. This was another choice that I was really hard pressed to leave behind. I love this. I love this all over background. And then I also was thinking, this is something quite different and unusual. And here is where I was thinking too, if you've got a black and white photo on that pink and off-white, I just think that looks beautiful. The other thing to keep in mind too, with your stripes, you can have them going whichever direction you want them to go. So lots of different options and opportunities here for our pattern papers. Now, when I printed out my photo, I printed this out so that I had the white border around here. And this is done, well, I got my photos printed at the drugstore at one of those photo printing kiosks, and I pushed this button by accident. I didn't mean to print the all over design. And so I thought, oh, this actually looks really nice. So I like having this white border on here, even though I am continuing to double matting my photos and double matting. And the reason I mat my photos, I'll bring in one without that white border, is that you can see if you put this down on your background paper, the photo is kind of competing with the background design. I think it can be even tricky when you're working with a more subtle pattern, but you see how it just kind of blends into the background. And yet, if you have the same photo with this border around it, it really does help to create a frame and set that apart from your background paper. It's kind of like if you frame a picture before you mount it onto your wall, especially if you have wallpaper, that's a good kind of reminder when you're working with your different patterned papers and your photos and how to make those stand out. So I've got my photo here. I've got this double matted onto vanilla and onto taupe cardstock. And then I'm going to add in my layers of other pattern paper. But let's talk about cardstock. So the taupe, this brown color that I have here, this is from this cardstock collection. I love a good cardstock. I'm kind of a cardstock nerd. The 12 by 12 cardstock colors are also, they're double-sided in the sense that one side has a texture to it. It's kind of like a linen weave almost. It's pretty subtle, but it's beautiful. It just makes it so tactile. So I'm using the taupe from this collection that also has coffee bean and walnut and cement. For my page, I'll use both the taupe and the cement, and I'll show you how that works in a bit. Then my off-white color here is from this collection, and this is the vanilla. You can see you've got a lot of cardstock. They're nice, sturdy packs in here, and they just are loaded with wonderful, beautiful cardstock. Super easy to work with. And of course, I've just simply trimmed around the outside edge to give me that double matting. Then to add in my layers here. So here's another coordinating design. Absolutely stunning. I love how these two go together. And I've put mine down kind of right in the center here. Now you could move it to either side. This is trimmed to 8 inches wide just to create sort of a center area here. And I could, as with these two, combined together, I could just put my photo on there and this would work nicely as well. But I wanted to have some differentiation between those two designs. And so here's where my cement cardstock comes in. And I really like a gray color because not only here, it's picking up some of the softer tones in those flowers and in the background. It's not as stark as black, but it does definitely give a bit of definition between this pattern paper and the background. But I couldn't stop there. So I also added in the vanilla. And this, of course, just works really nicely. So I've got those 3 layers together. Now with these 3, I've got them all glued together. And what I'm going to do is set this aside for now. I'm going to glue these 2 together. But before I start layering my pattern paper, I want to first do some rub-ons. And I'm going to do the rub-ons onto my textured cardstock, which I didn't think would work at first, but I tried it out and it works beautifully. So I'm going to show you that. So let's get these 2 down. And we'll add this piece as well. Normally when I'm working with adhesives, I like to use a double-sided tape, but for the interest of our demo, I'm going to keep things a little quicker with just a tape runner so that you don't have to watch me peel off the liners from my double-sided tape. Okay, so here's my building piece for the center, and then I've got my green portion cut down here. But what I wanted to do is add a little bit of a corner accent up here. And this is a really simple folded over corner that's then been folded back onto itself. I see this a lot for card making as well as scrapbooking, and I absolutely love it. It just adds a little something to the page, and it's super simple to do. It also gives you some space here where you can add something else, either an embellishment or a rub-on. So let me show you the rub-ons here that I'm working with. I love a good rub-on. I just think they're easy to use and they're beautiful. So with the Arden rub-ons, you've got 2 sheets in here, 2 each. So you've got 4 sheets all together. And you've got one with lots of beautiful images, and then you've got another one that's got some kind of background snippets, little fragments of text and splotches, and they work beautifully together. You can use them separately, of course, but you can also layer one on top of the other. And I'll show you that for our other accent piece down at the bottom of the page. But for now, what I'm going to do is take this gorgeous rub-on here, and I'm going to apply it onto this corner portion on my cement cardstock. So those of you who work a lot with rub-ons, you probably know this already. If it's been a while since you've used a rub-on, like since you were 10, then here's a little refresher for you. So you've got 2 layers in here. I'm trying to separate these. So you've got your printed image on top, and then you've got your liner. Keep those together as much as you can until you get your piece placed and ready to go. So I'm just taking some scissors and I'm chopping this one out from the backing piece, but I'm keeping the 2 of these together. And the rest of this won't fall apart. I can just set it off to one side. And here's where I can kind of play with the positioning. Do I want the text going this way? Do I want it going this way? I can figure out how I want this best to go. So I'm just going to place it down just as it is. So I'll separate these 2 layers. Get rid of that, and then position this right onto my cardstock. And I'm going to smooth this down. There's a little bit of tack to this, so it's not going to go sliding around. And now I just need to burnish this in place. In the package, you will get an applicator. In the US, we call this a popsicle stick. I don't know what you guys call it in the UK. Or anywhere else for that matter, craft stick maybe. So you can use that as your applicator. You can also use a bone folder as your applicator. And in a pinch, you can also use the handle of your scissors. Takes a little bit longer with that, but if you have a slightly messy craft desk, you may find that you're looking around for that craft stick, you're looking around for that bone folder, you can't find either one of them. It's a hopeless cause. You may need to resort to whatever else you can find. Whatever other tool you have on your work surface will probably do the trick. So even though I'm working onto a very lightly but definitely textured surface, and I'm using a really delicate text, it will transfer. So as I'm lifting this up, what I can do is kind of have a walk around here and say, oh, yeah, I missed this part. We need to go back and burnish that down a little bit more. So the nice thing here is that you can lift up your rub-on from time to time and just check and make sure that you've got all of those elements transferred. Absolutely beautiful. I had no idea that it would look so good when it's being transferred onto this textured surface. So I was really excited about that. So this is my accent piece up in my corner here. And then from here, I can figure out, okay, how much I want to fold over this portion to have it showing. Here's another thing. Because this paper is double-sided, if I wanted to, I could turn this around so that I'm showing a portion of that flower. So there's another option there. So you do have some different ways of folding this back, just depending on what portion you want to have showing underneath. So I'm going to put this about here and then simply fold this over like so, and then fold it back onto itself. And you can leave it as is. I like to add a little bit of inking around here. So I've got some dye-based ink. This is one of my favorites. It's called Velvet Fawn. It's one from Hunky Dory. You can see that I've definitely put this to good use. It is a very old ink pad, so it's not quite as juicy as it was when I first got it. But I do really love the soft brown because it adds a really nice shadow effect, and it's going to work beautifully with the colors that I've got here. So, oops, I've really abused my ink pad, I have to say. This is when you have tools and you use them a lot. So this is one that's hanging in there with me. Okay, so I've got a bit of brown going around here. And what I can do here is just tack this down. I'm going to use a little bit of double-sided tape for this to make sure that it's not popping up on me. Okay, so fold this here. I'm going to leave this portion open a little bit because I'm going to tuck the top of my photo in there. But for now, I can also adhere this in place. Yay. And I'll position this right along the edge of the bottom of the page and then right up here. So here we go. I've got a nice foundation for my page ready to go. And then again, I'm going to position my photo a little bit off to the side here. I wanted to have this just slightly overlapping so that I've got some nice continuity coming through here. So now that my basic layout has been figured out, from here I'm going to go into my journaling. Now the journaling is something that a lot of people, I think, struggle with a bit. Let me show you again with my page here, especially when you don't have a lot of information about the people in the photos, or perhaps you are not in the photo yourself. If you ever took a journalism class in school, you may remember the 5 W's and 1 H, and that's always a principle I keep in mind. So the who, what, where, when, why, and how. If you can answer any of those questions with your photo, those are really good bits of information to include. In this case, I know my mom's name and her brother's name, and where the photo was taken and when, but I don't really know a whole lot else about the photo. In fact, I was talking to my mom the other day on the phone, and I told her that I was going to use this photo. And she said, oh, yeah, I remember that one. It's a favorite in our family. The original is about this big, black and white, of course, and my mom has it. But seeing it enlarged, I said, oh, there's this, you guys are sitting in this wicker chair. I assumed that this was taken in a photo studio. And she said, "Oh no, my father took that photo," which I thought was really interesting because in 1939 or 1936, there weren't a lot of photos, cameras being used. She said it was a really old fashioned camera. And of course, it was, you had to really set it up. It's not like today when you can take 100 photos and toss out the ones you don't want. I'm thinking too, as a mom, how my grandmother or grandfather got two small kids in a chair together, looking at the camera, eyes open. He's smiling in a really cute way. And also the choice of putting a baby into an all white suit. Cleanup methods weren't as easy as they are today. So I sense that there's more of a story around here, which I think I will save for my the other side of my double page spread. But for now, I have this information about the who, the where, and the when. I also like to add in some what I'm kind of calling creative journaling. And that term, I don't want it to scare anybody. You don't have to be a writer. You don't have to, be writing really heartfelt things or deeply personal things. I always like to pull a good quote. And quotes are plentiful. If you are like me, you may have a book of quotes. You can find these on the internet as well. But I found a really nice one that says, "The family is one of nature's masterpieces." And I think, as I was talking about all of the things that would have gone into the taking of this photo, it is a bit of a masterpiece. And also, I like that there's the word nature in here because my mother and her brother, both growing up in Germany, they emigrated shortly after the war. And my mom went to the US, and my dad and my uncle went to Australia. So, two very different landscapes. Both of them were and are avid gardeners. In Oregon, we have a lot of rain. In Australia, I think there's not so much of it, but both of them managed to create beautiful, beautiful gardens. So I do really like having the word nature in there as well. And it's also why I was incorporating some flowers in here too, and the flowers in the background. So I've used a simple and really nice, I think, general quote. You could use this for a lot of family photos. And another tip that I like to use also with journaling is to include a definition of a word. So if you have a theme of your page, and in this case, it's siblings, brother and sister, I chose the word sibling and just pulled the actual literal dictionary definition of sibling. And you know how often in dictionaries they'll have see also, and they'll have like synonyms, or they'll have explanatory sentences. And I found this also online. It says, "A piece of childhood which can never be lost." I think that is absolutely beautiful, and also really, does say something about the relationship between these two. Since my uncle, as I mentioned, did pass away, but this is a bond that will never be lost. And so I like having this as a companion to my journaling. Now, when I'm doing my journaling and I'm finding things like this online or in my actual paper dictionary or thesaurus, I like to print them out just onto regular copy paper with my home printer. And I also like to play with the fonts and the font sizes. So this font is called Tippa, and I have a mixture of sizes of it. So I've got 22 font, 22 point for some of the words, and 17 for some of the other words, and then 12 for the little details on here. So when you're playing around with this, kind of play with the proportion and how you want it to read, if you want it to go vertically or horizontally. I'm just working in a Word document too. This is nothing fancy that wouldn't come on most people's computers. And then what I'll do is take this and just chop it out from the background and make sure that it fits. So then I can say, okay, this is about the right size, or yeah, I need to make it bigger or smaller, or angle things around. From there, I print it out for real on my real cardstock. And the real cardstock is the natural white that I'm using from Arden This is a 225 GSM cardstock, which maybe is important only to cardstock nerds like me, but it means that it is the perfect weight for either die cutting, stamping on. It's smooth. It goes through my fussy old printer beautifully, no paper jams. I love it. And it gives me just a really nice way to add in my journaling here. So I'll print this off onto that kind of cardstock. And then I've got pieces that I can use along here. And I've also inked around the edges of these two to create a shading effect. And you can also print onto an off-white cardstock. I like having the white. It's picking up some of the white in that frame as well. And then I'll ink around a little bit here. Again, just using that dye-based ink pad. And then this gets tucked underneath here. So this is where I can start playing with where I want to put things before I glue them down. So I'm going to pop this here along the edge. I've got enough room down here at the bottom. Let me refer back to my original page so I don't do something that I didn't mean to. Okay, and then I'm going to tuck this down and add my photo to the page. And then we can do some more embellishing. All right. I'm curious, those of you who are watching live, if you have any brothers or sisters, if you have any siblings, where do you end up in the family lineup? Older, younger? I am the youngest of three. I'm also the shortest, which you can see where that's going. I'm going to pop this right here, like so. I think I've got that about even. Smooth this down, and then this is tucked down here as well. And then I can take this off, this liner, and fold it over. Okay, and I'll add my journaling. And this can go overlapping here. I like to have elements that overlap because I think it really helps to lead your eye through things. So here I've got, slightly wonky, got that down there right. Here I've got all of my critical components, right? So I've got my photo, I've got some journaling on here as well. Now it's time to embellish. How can we embellish it? Well, there are lots of different ways. I'm going to pull some elements from the ephemera pack. And this is such a super value. This is absolutely loaded. There are 100 elements in here, and you can see some of the designs. Hold it up a little more. Have a look at all of the words in here. So you've got father, mother, of course, brother, sister. You've also got lots of other words in here too, which really help to create some nice titles for your pages. You've got a lot of frames and lots of other elements in there too, some borders as well. And there are two pieces in here that when I opened that pack, I thought I have to use this swirl for something. I think it's gorgeous. And also this floral motif. I think both of these are just absolutely stunning. And I like how they're slightly different illustration styles, but they just go together perfectly. And so I'm going to pop these up at the top of the photo up here because we've got some open area here. There's kind of a textured wall behind them, but there's nothing here that really can't be covered up. So there's nothing here that would lend any kind of significance to the location or anything else. I'm going to place this like so, and then this overlapping here. I think I'm walking off the page a bit. There we go. And then I'll just secure those down. Put this up along the edge there and also overlap with the flower bouquet. And as I mentioned, flowers are significant to my family. I think a lot of families have some avid gardeners, and my family is no exception. Unfortunately, I did not inherit that talent, so I can admire the plants, but I can't grow them very well. So then I've got my word brother, which I'm going to add on here. Now, here's the other thing with that ephemera set. I'm just going to show you some of the different words that we've got in here. So you've got lots of different fonts. You've got lots of different styles. You've got lots of different people in here, from uncle and father, mom, there's mother. Scoop this all up here. And I also really love how you're getting some words like history and family in here too, so that you've got some elements to mix and match in there. And these are just some of the ones that I pulled out. So you've got a lot to work with. So I'm going to grab that brother, the word brother. And I've got this up on foam tape. I really like adding in a little bit of dimension with the foam tape. And I'll pop this overlapping that flower like so. Okay, so there we go. Already I've got some dimension in here. Now I've got a lot kind of going on up here at the top, and so I wanted to balance this with something down here. But I've also got a lot of lines. Like scrapbooking can be very linear because you're working in a square-shaped surface with lots of lines, lots of boxes. So it's really nice now and then to soften that with something that's a more organic shape, like up here, or with a circle or an oval. And I've got a die-cut circle here that's been layered with a scalloped circle shape that matches it. So let me show you what I've got here. This is just from a very basic and very, very often used die set for me, which is one that has all of these coordinating smooth circles with scalloped frames. So there's like, I don't know, 10 of them in there. I use these all the time. And I've die cut a smooth circle from the vanilla cardstock and then the scalloped circle from the taupe. So again, coordinating with the mats on our photo. Now I mentioned with the rub-ons that you can do some layering with your rub-ons, and that's what I did on my circle here. So I'm going to hold this up so you can see it a little bit more. I've got a splotch here as my background, and then this floral piece, which of course is the mirror of this floral piece here. Everything is coordinated. I love it. So I've got my floral, and then I'm going to cut out my background piece. And let's see, let me make sure I'm right in the center here. So I've got this portion, which I'm just going to set down like so. Smooth it down. And again, same principle as before. I'm just going to burnish this in place. And I'm working onto the smooth side of my cardstock here. So you can do both sides. In this case, I'm doing the smooth. Let's take a peek here and see how we are. Okay, that's coming off nicely. Got some going off the edge. That's okay. And then I'm going to take the floral image and layer it on top. And this is a nice technique to have on hand in your head when you're creating background elements or layering things. I'm just going to place this down here. The first time I did this, I thought by applying another rub-on on top of the first that I would like scrape off or accidentally lift off some of the design underneath, but it didn't happen. So pleasantly surprised with my experiment. Okay, burnish this. And apologies if the camera is wiggling a little bit. You don't have to put a whole lot of elbow grease into that burnishing, but you do need to be firm with it. And make sure you get all of those detail pieces. And there we go. So I'm able to get a really nice layered effect on there. And so from here, I'm going to pop this up onto my scalloped circle. Put this here, and then down at the bottom. Again, overlapping. So I'm overlapping a lot of different elements here, which again just helps to lead your eye through the page. See if I'm getting this on here straight. There we go. And then from here, of course, I've got the coordinating word sister. So I'll pop this down at the bottom. This is also up on some foam tape too. Okay. So what else can we do? I've got a folded over corner with a rub on. I've got some ephemera pieces here and here. I've got journaling. Everything is surrounding the photo and really making this the highlight. And of course, you can add more. You can stop here, but you can also add more. And I really find that these little buttons are wonderful embellishments. Not only are they round, so again, helping to kind of soften some of those lines, they're also just, there's something really nostalgic about buttons, I think. And maybe I was one of the few kids. Did your grandma or mother have like a jar of buttons at home that you maybe played with? Maybe this was just me. But we had this great big jar of spare buttons. And I would organize them. I would line them up. I don't know what all I did with them, but I do remember playing a lot with the jar of buttons. Simpler times, you guys, simpler times. Okay, so there's 3 down at the bottom, and I'm going to mirror this up here and add 3 more. I'm working in 3s, of course, with this rule of uneven numbers, which is use 3, 5, 7, 9, and that is just visually pleasing to the human eye. So this goes for scrapbooking, card making, floral arranging, home decorating, grouping pictures if you're hanging them on the wall. It just works really nicely here too. So I've got some overlap going on here as well, and again to create a frame around our photo. Now there's one last thing that I want to add because I love these so much. I love little enamel dots. I think they're just a lot of fun and they add such a nice extra touch to a page or a card. And I've got 3 going on right up along the top here. 3 of the tan ones, and I went large, small, large. And this time I'm going to pop the medium. Let's put a medium dot here and some small dots. And you've got lots of different coordinating colors in here, so that makes it easy to pick whatever colors you want to emphasize. There's a little one. And then another little one here. And that can be the finishing touch on my page. Oh, Fiona, your grand had a jar of buttons. You love playing with them too. Yeah, I think this is a childhood thing. I don't know. It's just, I remember so fondly. I could spend literally hours with that jar of buttons. Something just wonderful about them. So I love having them as accent pieces in here too. So back to the original page, we've done a speed scrapbooking layout assembly here. But again, we've got a nice large photo talking about different kinds of colors and pattern papers, to what goes with what, different tones, warm tones versus the cool tones of a black and white. I love how everything is so easy to coordinate between those pattern designs And of course, your rub-ons, whether you do just one, maybe on some textured cardstock, or double them up, or probably even triple them up if you wanted to. A couple of journaling tips there. Hopefully, those have been useful to you. Some other ways to inspire you to add some text and some journaling onto your scrapbook pages. And as I was talking about like some of the stories that my mom was telling me behind this photo, I was thinking, now what I need to do is work on a facing page, for a double page spread. Let me scoot these all over here. And I already have earmarked, I think this would be absolutely gorgeous together. And if I just took some of the information from my mom and made a scrapbooking journaling block right in here, maybe a couple of them overlapping, I would be able to tell a little bit more of her story of what was going on behind the scenes with my grandfather taking this photo in the garden. And also, I mean, as you're noting by the date on here, this was not an easy time and was about to get a whole lot harder. So there's a lot of really interesting stories that I think can stem from just a simple childhood photo like this. Probably some of you have got similar photos in your family heritage, and it's wonderful to be able to bring those stories to light in a different way, perhaps through our scrapbooking. Whether you're going with heartfelt journaling or something maybe a little bit easier to do, to pull either with a definition and or a quote on there. So I'm going to swap up my camera again so that we can see one another. Susan, it was wonderful that you joined. Oh, you will love this collection. Yeah, it's some gorgeous stuff. And you know what I have to say too, I'm going to hold this up just one more time. I mentioned this earlier before we started the demo. I think a layout like this would work beautifully for lots of different themes, not only heritage. So I think when we're talking about remembering, it could be remembering a wedding, it could be remembering an anniversary, it could be remembering, lots of different occasions. So there are a lot of really beautiful options and ways to make scrapbooking your pages and your memories even easier. So a big thank you for joining me today. Thank you, Fiona, for being behind the scenes and either getting me out of the backstage or wherever I had wandered off to. I'm glad that we were able to solve that little glitch there too. If you're watching us on the replay, thank you so much for joining us too. Remember, you can always watch these videos either live or whenever suits your schedule. And I will be back again on the 21st, a Friday. I will be joining on Fridays a couple times a month, and we'll be doing even more scrapbooking then. So I hope you can join me then. So until next time, thank you again for joining. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Have a wonderful weekend. And I will look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care, everybody.